Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. We are excited to have you all here as part of our discussion around accelerating summer education. How do we increase student engagement during this incredibly important time of the year? At Legends of Learning, we strive to be on the cutting edge of new game-based learning strategies and techniques, as well as bringing thought leaders together around student engagement. Today, we're here to do just that, to explore the latest innovations, current and projected trends, and solutions to the issues affecting our schools. This collaborative conversation brings together some of the best and brightest minds in the K-8 mathematics realm as we explore how to best accelerate summer learning. During a typical summer, on average, students lose 1 to 1.5 months of learning in mathematics. This has been called many things, from the summer slide to summer learning loss, to unfinished learning, to even opportunity loss. Throughout the discussion today, you may hear it be called multiple different names. However, we want you to know that we are all talking about the same issue. This is an issue that's affecting all of us, and we're all discussing this in a singular manner. As we all know, COVID-19 has had some massive impacts on education across the nation. Some of the impacts pushed education forward. For instance, the accessibility of devices and the internet dramatically increased between March and October of last year. However, there were still many negative impacts, including exponential learning loss. There were many preliminary reports with catastrophic predictions last year. However, when the NWEA and McKinley Company both looked at the data this winter again, the results were actually mixed. On the bright side, the data showed that students did make learning gains on average during the pandemic, and reading scores in 2020 were mostly comparable to students in the same grade in 2019. However, in math, students on average are actually likely to still lose 5 to 9 months of learning by the end of this school year alone. Students of color are seeing even worse stats and could be 6 to 12 months behind, compared with 4 to 8 months for white students. One thing we do know, that there are ways to combat this issue during the summer, and it can't be the same old worksheet packets and forced math fact memorizations that we all had when we were growing up. Not only do we know that these methods don't lead to retention, but parents are not going to be on board with supporting this type of learning. This March, the National PTA surveyed parents on a number of issues and found that though over 6 in 10 parents were worried about their child not making academic progress this year, the vast majority of parents want a break for their students during the summer from school. Today, I am joined by some incredible leaders in education from across the nation to dig into this specific issue. How can we accelerate learning for students this summer in an engaging and impactful way? As a panel, they will share some of the work that's being done in their districts. And then at the end, we're going to open it up, our virtual floor, the chat box, if you will, for some questions. At Legends of Learning, we have had many conversations with education leaders across the nation around this topic of summer learning and student engagement. And today we're joined by some of them. As I introduce each panelist, I'm going to actually ask them an important question. What do they remember about summer when they were growing up? So joining me today, first off, I have Dr. Tonya Clarke from Clayton County, Georgia. She's the K-12 mathematics coordinator. Welcome, Tonya.
Good afternoon, thank you. And what do I remember about summer growing up? I remember freedom. Summer was freedom and flexibility to do almost what I want, not everything I wanted, but almost what I wanted within my parents' limits. And just the opportunity to hang out with friends and to kind of get some time to just to I guess as a teenager, my thought was just hang out, but to get into some, I'll say, good trouble.
I love it. Good trouble's a good thing. Good trouble's a very good thing. Next today we have Dr. Spencer Jameson. He's from Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia, and he's an elementary math specialist there.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm excited to be here. And to kind of piggyback on Dr. Clarke, I think one of the things that I really remember most about summer was the freedom and the fun that we used to have, right? And it was about really engaging with our playmates and doing things and exploring and really just enjoying life. And so that's really what I kind of remember about summer.
I think that many of us would agree with you on that one. Next with us, we have Dr. Eva Swiner from Palm Beach County, Florida, and she's the manager of math, science, and STEM down there. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here with you all today and my esteemed colleagues to talk about this with all of you. So my favorite memory is probably just playing outside. Having the freedom to just run around, climb in trees, hang out with friends, go to the beach. I'm a Florida girl, so we'd get up in the morning, we'd have breakfast, and then I might come home as soon as the sun started going down. There was no cell phones, there was no beepers. It was the sun went down. That's how you knew it was time to go home. So playing outside all day long.
I love it. I love it. I remember very much the same, but all the way up in Buffalo, New York. So I think we were doing the same thing everywhere. Finally, we have Nakia Moffett from Spring ISD, Texas. She's the secondary math curriculum coordinator there. Welcome, Nakia.
Good afternoon, everybody. And just thinking of the summer back in the days, it's just bringing back so many great memories. And I remember summer camp. We look forward to going to summer camp every year, kind of meeting up with the same people. And that was just one of my best times, and reading unlimited without, people saying go to bed. But I love reading my books and attending summer camp with all of my friends every summer. It's just great, good memories.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to jump right in. Thank you all for joining us and for sharing some of your memories from back in the day. But we're going to jump right in. Let's start with Dr. Clarke. Dr. Clarke, your district has a track record for building towards the future of education. This year, many districts had to rely on multiple types of instructional methods, including asynchronous learning. How do you see these methods transferring to the classroom of the future and into next year, especially?
Yes, good question. Yes, we had to, kind of pull in many different ways of delivering instruction. And I know even prior to COVID, we were always looking for different ways to be creative, different ways to deliver instruction that was, that was open and accessible to all students. But with COVID having to be virtual, and we were virtual for quite a while in Clayton County, we had to really rely on both that, as you said, asynchronous as well as synchronous instruction, and even now what we're calling simultaneous instruction, where we're doing virtual students who are virtual and students who are in front of us at the same time. And I think what we have been able to learn from that is just a lot of flexibility, because not only flexibility in our teaching and our thinking about teaching, but flexibility in the way we deliver instruction. So because of really focusing on how do we deliver asynchronous instruction, what does that look like? Because that's a difficult task. If you've never taught virtually, that's a very difficult task to just pick up, to teach asynchronously, not to just give assignments, but to have students develop understanding, to actually learn through the computer, through assignments that you are providing, to plan through that. So I think going into the future, I can see us still using asynchronous instruction in ways that will, where we have often talked about, homework. And a lot of times we send students home with homework, and although some are, there's a lot of research for and against homework, it could be good practice if we plan through the way that it's implemented, effectively. So if we think about the way that we have delivered asynchronous instruction, we can think about homework almost like that asynchronous instruction opportunity. So it could be an opportunity for students to practice, but to practice correctly. So instead of them going home and not understanding or still trying to think through what was done in the classroom, they're going home with those additional resources, those additional, maybe video vignettes, those additional direction instructions that will help them work through that independent time of thinking through their work. So I think that having to implement both the synchronous, asynchronous, and now simultaneous, and the other one that we called, which was where you were completely off of the technology. I can't think of what it was called right this moment. I think that has taught us to be. I think in the future it's going to give us a lot more flexibility in in not only how we deliver instruction, but what we provide students in our delivery of our instruction.
No, that's fantastic, and you know that's something that we're hearing quite often from a lot of districts. It's very similar thoughts. Any of our other panelists, any thoughts on what you see in the future in your districts when it comes to asynchronous learning, these new instructional methods?
I can share some thoughts. So
Yeah.
I think for us, just as Dr. Clarke mentioned, it was all about flexibility. I mean, our teachers are, and as I'm sure all of your teachers are in your respective districts, I mean, what they made happen for our students and for our families and for our learning community was amazing. Truly just hats off to all of them and what they made happen in such a short amount of time and how they've sustained it. Just as Dr. Clarke mentioned, our teachers here are also teaching both face-to-face and remote learners simultaneously. And that's no easy feat. So I think they've really taken to heart some strategies and some tools, and they've really diversified their toolbox a lot to be able to think about how they approach their curriculum in new and innovative ways that maybe they never really thought about before. You know, I know when I was a teacher in a classroom, I had my set of labs that I absolutely loved, and they were like my go-to things. But if I had to switch and make this transition, those labs were not going to work. You know, I couldn't engage everyone. So as a teacher, you'd have to think about, okay, well, what could this look like? How could I think about this activity differently? So I really think for us, as I'm sure it is for all of you, it was all about flexibility and patience and personal grace in, you know, just trying something. And if it worked, fantastic. If it didn't, okay, roll up your sleeves. Let's think about it a different way. Really just persevering through everything that this year has brought.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Dr. Clarke, you have something to add?
I was just going to add just another thought. Just one of the things that tends to be a big barrier for our students is the interference by us, the educators sometimes. And when students are asynchronous, they are able to, you know, think through in a way that makes sense to them. You know, when they just have, you know, think about this problem, or, you know, how would you address this problem or something like that. They have the opportunity to think about it without the interference of the educator. But at the same time, when you think about other ways that we can use asynchronous, such as having students leave posts, you know, maybe give some input on a discussion at their leisure or at a time that's convenient for them, they can then do it when they're ready to do it. But at the same time, they can do it without me having to interfere with what they're trying to say. So I think the asynchronous also opens up that opportunity for students to have a little more voice in what they're learning and how they're learning it and how they communicate that learning.
Couldn't say it any better, honestly, on that one. And just switch gears a little bit. We're gonna switch over to Dr. Spencer Jameson over there. As you know, learning loss is not a new concept. This idea of opportunity loss is something that is truly part of what has been happening to our students every year. It's just been exponentially grown in the last year. We also know that learning from our past can be instrumental in a positive step forward. So Spencer, how has COVID impacted student learning loss in your district, and how have you changed to combat this?
Yeah, Jonathan, I think that's an excellent question. And I really think that it's this idea of, you know, unfinished learning, opportunity lost, you know, whatever people are calling it, right? It's real. And for some students, it's more real than for others, because it's about the support that they have, and it's about the resources that they have available. So we have to be cognizant of that at a division level, or at a district level, or at a state level, or even as a nation level. We have to be cognizant of that some have more than others. So what are we going to do to really kind of support that? And I think one way that we really tackled that idea here in Fairfax was we really focused on this idea of, okay, if we have this unfinished learning, we have a certain amount of time to really kind of make sure we get kids moving forward, moving towards the goal that we all want, which is to be great math students, right? And to love math as much as everybody on this phone call probably loves math. That's why we're all here. And to be able to do that, we need to we needed to identify in our curriculum, whether it's, Common Core. I'm in Virginia, so we have the Virginia State Standards. It doesn't matter what your curriculum is. It's really identifying that there are certain standards that are extremely important. And in Fairfax, we call those targeted standards. We call those really the essential standards that we want all kids to know. So being a math person, I have to say this. All math standards are important, but some are more important than others. Let's face it. I'm an elementary guy. I love time. Time is a great thing to have, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time teaching time this year. I'm really going to be focusing on number and thinking about deeply about how to develop that idea. So when those kids move on to a different grade level, that they're going to have it. And so what we've done is we identified those essential standards for kids, and we let teachers know what those essential standards were. And together, we decided that this summer, moving forward, what we're going to do is we're going to implement what we are calling a program of standards, and we're inviting targeted students that, for different reasons, might have not have made the growth that we wanted this year, and inviting those students to, for lack of better words, a summer school. But it's not your traditional summer school, right? Because let's be honest, who wants to go to summer school? Just the name of it sounds kind of not so exciting, right? So the idea behind this summer school is using those targeted standards at each grade level and targeting the students that we want to incorporate, and making sure that we're giving them engaging activities that will build their understanding in a conceptual way and really help them with that procedural idea. So it's really, we like to look at it as a jump start or a boost towards next year as we kind of move forward. And we're pretty lucky that we're spending 3 weeks. We scraped up enough money. There's never enough money, right? We scraped enough money to really supply 3 weeks of this targeted essential standards for these students. So we're super excited about it. And while 3 weeks doesn't sound like a long time, it can make a big difference in a kid's life. So that's what we're kind of doing in Fairfax. And I'm sure others are doing that, something similar or something different in their division.
No, fantastic. And I, you hit it. You hit what's really important is that, yes, there are some that all standards are important for math, but there are those essential ones that are foundational for everything moving forward. And without understanding them, I mean, we just keep on putting our students at a disadvantage moving forward. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that from the rest of our panelists?
I think the idea of the summer, but the summer in a different way from the what we remember, whatever summer school used to be. I remember my early teaching, summer school was literally school in the summer, more of the same in the summer. So I think that's a great idea, Dr. Jameson.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to switch gears one more time here, and I'm going to turn over to Eva here. I know Palm Beach County has been focusing on this issue for some time, and so Dr. Swiner, how are your educators in schools preparing differently this year as they look at summer learning for their students?
That's a really good question. So similar to some of the things that Dr. Jameson mentioned, really, we took a very critical eye at what were those, we actually call them essential skills as well. Those targeted skills, those targeted concepts that we really are just critical for student success in the next grade level. So we kind of looked at it like a vertical alignment. And so, we really thought deeply about how we approach that, and similar to what Dr. Jameson mentioned in terms of, we didn't want it to feel like school, I mean, the kids have been through so much this year and just have achieved so much in spite of everything that was working against them. We really wanted to create a space for them that could support them as they endeavored forward into the next grade level, and really helped them feel like they were making connections. So for our summer programming, it not only pulled together all of those essential skills or those targeted standards, but really did it in a very new, what we think is a new and innovative way. So we have a 4-week program that we offered for a targeted group of students. And, you know, we created a day that felt school-ish, but more fun. So, you know, part of our blocks, while they're talking about math or science, they have, you know, PBL components where they're bringing the real world in. You know, they might go on a nature walk and look for the geometry of shapes in the world around them. They might be able to, you know, take a patch of grass out in a field and do a data table analysis and looking at creating data tables. So they're really experiencing the math as opposed to just learning the math. And so we wanted to bring in critical components like coding and gaming, and make that a part of our daily instruction for our summer programming. And then we took that one step further. So if you weren't one of the kids that were, you know, targeted or selected for this specific group, we also created a whole separate pod of learning opportunities that's available to everyone in Palm Beach County as an open resource. So it's a series of lessons, again, focused on those same exact essential skills, except they're at-home activities that you could do with anything just laying around your house. So, you know, they might be, we recorded read alouds for our kids that maybe can't go to a library or don't have access to books at home, where they watch a video that they could, even on their phone, a laptop, tablet, whatever they have, and just listen to a story being read to them at their Lexile. And then they do something with what they were talking about. So for example, in one of our lessons, it's what do you do with a problem? And that's one of my all-time favorite STEM books. I love it to bits. But so what do you do with a problem? And so they look at a problem in the world around them. And so they identify what this problem is, and then they build some kind of apparatus with like regular household materials to help solve that problem, or achieve a goal. So it's really just accessible content to anyone, but still helps support that standards integration and that standards support that we're all really looking for, especially this year.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic, and love the innovation. Dr. Jameson, yes.
So I would just like to add on. First of all, I want to come to your program because it sounds amazing. It sounds engaging. And let's be honest, I say this all the time. If math isn't fun, then we're doing it wrong, right? Math should always be fun. I'm super excited about your program. And you know, and I'm hoping our program is going to be somewhat similar for kids to be excited, because we want kids to want to be there. And we don't want it to be the traditional, hey, this is summer school. You know, for a lot of times, I can think about, you know, if I had to go to summer school, which, okay, I went to summer school. But I was invited to summer school because I didn't pay attention in school. So yeah, I went to more school, right? And then that's what Dr. Clarke was saying, is about this. It's more school, it's more school. It's about the engagement, and it's about really making it powerful for the kids, where they're learning because they want to learn. And I tip my hat to you. Like I said, that sounds wonderful. So congratulations there.
I agree. I totally agree. I was like, that sounds amazing. And I like the fact that you all opened it up, that access to all students. So it's not like I'm being punished. You know, like, what if I want to enrich myself and I want to be involved? I think that you're giving all students like that accessibility to a program is just going to benefit your, you know, your whole community. So, and then just to use household products. So that takes the equity. Like, I can use whatever I have in my home to create something. And just that creativity alone, you'd be amazed what kids can do when you kind of just let their minds go. So I totally agree. And I love the concept of your summer enrichment program.
I think you hit something really important there, Nakia, especially in the sense of, you know, kids will make it fun as well. You know, they'll see the math in places that we won't see it if we give them the opportunity. And I think that's one of the things that we miss, is letting the students, as I think Dr. Clarke, you were saying earlier, you know, letting the students lead a little bit in their own learning. It's so important to the larger picture of things. And Spencer, I definitely want to see if I could steal that phrase. If I wrote it down literally right here, if math isn't fun, you're doing it wrong. I think I want to make sure that that's posted everywhere on the Legends website as well. So I'll have you sign something later for that if that's okay. No, but thank you on that. So this is actually a great segue because next we really want to talk about engagement. You know, engagement is the crux of everything. Engagement is key to students wanting to learn. Our research has found game-based learning is one way to student engagement increases, which if you know as I call it, the research out there, you know, when students are engaged, they learn and then retain more knowledge. Shouldn't be too surprising there. So I'm going to turn it over to Nakia. Nakia, how are you planning on keeping students engaged in content during these summer months? And have you started to implement any of these summer enrichment programs, getting them ready for the summer at this point? Love to hear it.
Yeah, so in my district, we have decided that the best way to keep our students engaged is kind of what Dr. Swiner said was, you know, we want to introduce our students to this project-based learning. You know, project-based learning, it not only affects their academics, but even their interpersonal skills. The projects, they're usually large and like complex. You're like, you want kids to solve this? We're like, yes, that is what we want our scholars to do. And then they find out they can't do it alone. So then they have to invite more people, which means they're grouping themselves, they're doing group work. It fosters communication skills and encourages our students with diverse and possibly conflicting personalities to find some common ground. Like, oh, you can do that. And at the very least, they can work together without constant tension of trying to, you know, compete because they have to work together to get this project done. So teamwork building introduces our students to specialization and an extremely just the real world. It gives them real world skills that they'll need in the workplace. Sometimes we feel like we're isolated, but we truly are working together. And just our project-based learning, it encourages our students just to develop problem-solving skills and encourages them to develop their own ideas. We want to embrace their ideas. We want to encourage them to think and to think critically. So we're using this project-based learning, and within our project-based learning, we do still target standards. So we take our standards and we put them in a situation, and we have them use those standards to solve this problem. And it could be a global problem. It could be any problem that we come up with that the students have to actually use these skills. So now they're applying it, and they're just like, why? They don't have to ask, why do we need this? Because the why is there. So I think that's how we're going to engage them, is using the problem-based learning approach this summer with our students. And we did kind of start them off this year during the school year of doing a project-based learning just one time through the year. So the students won't be like, what is this again this summer? So that's how we kind of introduced them to it. And a lot of them are really looking forward to it because they like to come up with things on their own and then to outdo the other groups or the other teams when they get together to present their ideas. So.
I love that. And Nakia, I wrote down as well, you called your students, not your students, but our scholars. I really like that. I might steal that as well, just not throwing anything out there. But also, you know, I love the idea of project-based learning. You know, there's this group that has some fantastic video game development lessons that have been created. It's on this Legends of Learning website for free summer resources. Not going to throw anything out there, but no, you're spot on. Getting kids to start thinking about some of those different pieces and you know, acting and building their own little mini communities to solve problems is critical. And that's really what we want our students to do in the long run as well. Any other thoughts on that? How you're engaging students? Yeah, Nakia, sorry.
We actually also within our project-based learning, we actually embed Legends of Learning games so they can practice the skill, but then the project-based learning, they use the skill. So we absolutely, the kids love being competitive and creating their avatars, and that gets them going and keeps them, you know, like, okay, I know how to use this skill, and now they're applying it in the project-based learning. So we love Legends of Learning in our district, and we do utilize it even in our summer curriculum as well.
That's fantastic. I honestly did not know that. I was just literally plugging some free resources there. So, but I appreciate that. Now the application though, I think you hit on a great piece, is that, it doesn't take just one strategy to really engage kids. We have to give them multiple different ways to engage them and give them opportunities to actually apply their knowledge. Any other thoughts on engagement and how you're engaging kids over the summer? Yeah,
In
Dr.
Clayton County, we follow kind of the same approach to our summer. We have 3 different summer programs, and our first program that kicks off is our summer STEM camp. And all students it's open to any student that's in Clayton County. Then the summer STEM camps are exactly that, they're STEM camps. And the focus is that we want students fully integrating the math, the science, the technology, the engineering into real situations. And so like Nakia said, it's really focused on problem-based learning or project-based learning, which is a huge focus in our district overall. We've integrated it into the curriculum for all of our core content areas. So we've got camps for kindergartners on designing and coding, and for K through 2, we have camps for K through 5 through Bricks for Kids, where they're building different designs using Legos. We have camps for a higher 6 through 12, where they're doing coding or water power, engineering water power, or learning about aviation, and then the camp that my department actually created, which is the WOKE project, where it stands for Widening Options Through Knowledge and Empowerment, where students are using math as a tool to model social, political, economic situations and be able to advocate in their community. And so those STEM camps, they run simultaneously. Students actually get to pick which camp they want to attend. And so it's very engaging, very applicable, relevant to what students are interested in, because they choose based off of we probably have 12 to 15, probably more than that, I'm probably underselling it, probably about 15 different camps that they can choose from. And they love it. I think this is our 3rd year offering the summer STEM camp option for our students. And then we go from there into our Summer Enrichment Academy, which is reading and math focused, but it is also high energy, highly engaging, very visual for grades K through 8. And then we have an accelerated camp that we do at the end of the summer for those students that are bridging into different grades. So we actually run we call it summer school throughout the entire summer, but in different chunks. And we open it to all students. Anyone can apply to, and by apply, we need to know who's coming. So anyone can come, and we accommodate as we get the applications in. So we do, of course, those who have who we feel really might have a need to attend for that additional enrichment because of maybe how they perform throughout the year. We push a little further, but we keep it open for anyone.
That's fantastic. I'm going to need dates from all of you on your camps, because I need to be in Texas on which dates, Fairfax and some, and over to Clayton. I mean, legitimately, if thinking back to that very first question I asked when you were kids, I'm thinking about when I was a kid, and these are the camps that I would love to come to be very honest. So any other thoughts on the engagement piece, or Spencer?
Yeah, I really echo what you just said there, Jonathan. Like, these all sound amazing. And I think one of the things that everything that we've kind of talked about is this idea of engagement, and really meeting the students from where they are and trying to take them to where we think they need to go. Now, where we think they need to go, they might not get there yet, but where they need to go, they'll get there, because they'll be able to survive and make sure that it happens. You know, I've been in education for 25 years, and not one time has my boss come up to me and said, Spencer, I need you to answer this problem for me. The answer is A, and give me an answer. B, give me not once have I had a multiple choice selection from my boss, any boss that I've ever had, which is amazing. So when I think about the I'm going to call them summer camps that everyone is running, right? It's about the engagement. It's about putting kids in power. And it's really about this idea that kids are driving it. And that's what to me is super exciting, when kids drive the learning versus the curriculum drives the learning, right? We know where they need to go and they'll get there. But I think for me, that is definitely a big takeaway that I'm learning here today. I've learned a lot already today, and it's only been like a half hour that we've been meeting. So I think this is an awesome idea that's taking place, and I'm glad you guys are sharing it with everybody.
Thank you, Spencer. Absolutely. I totally agree. At this point, I'm actually going to turn it over to our virtual chat room and see if there's any questions that come in there. If you have a question for our panelists, if it's for just the group or for a specific one, please feel free to enter it into our chat box. In the meantime, while we're waiting to see see if any questions come in there, you know, I want to just kind of throw it out there that you're spot on. You know, this idea of how we're engaging our students, especially during the summer, and that one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that it wasn't just, you weren't just limiting it to the specific kids who needed, quote, and we're using the word enrichment, you know, but to students who, you know, who want to be there, who, you know, it's not just for a certain subgroup of students anymore. All students need the access. They do. It's what Spencer, you were talking about earlier, the opportunity loss. You know, we can't withhold that opportunity from other students. So I have actually one more question here that I'll ask while we see if there's any questions that come in the chat. Oh, here we do have one coming in here. Will the changes we see to summer learning for this year carry forward into future years, or do you think this is going to be a one-time thing? Great question.
I can tell you for Clayton County, this is actually our third year offering this. So this is something that we were already doing in our district. And one of the things that we have talked about within the district is a few of the things that we have been brainstorming about how to ensure that we are providing access for all students. Because a lot of what we're seeing this year with COVID are really just being highlighted, are things that we've seen previously prior to COVID just being highlighted more. We've had learning loss prior to COVID. We have had inequity and students some students who who you know gain more or gain less than others prior to COVID, but I think it has been accentuated more because of COVID. So we were brainstorming through a lot of this prior, and the STEM camps was one of the ways that we had already considered combating that learning loss that happens, or that you know, that slide, that what we call that summer slide that happens during the summer. The other way is that a couple of years ago we started the path towards accelerated learning instead of remedial learning, and a focus on how do we support students who need more enrichment, but more enrichment, not just those who are on level and need to have more enrichment to go beyond, but those who are a grade or two behind. But remediation just tends to perpetuate that issue because they continue to be in that grade behind mode where they're constantly trying to catch up. So how do we then merge that opportunity to fill in gaps with the acceleration? And we started that about a year or two ago. And I think just in time before COVID, because what we started to see during COVID was those students that we were putting on that path to, instead of just in remedial learning, but to focus on using acceleration to bridge that gap between, we have seen them actually fare better than the expected during this COVID time. So that's another way that we're actually combating that, what we're calling learning loss, and that we feel will definitely continue And actually, we will probably looking for additional ways to support those initiatives.
Thank you. No, thank you on that. We have some other questions here. We do have one. How are you handling staffing? Are you offering any incentives for teachers to take part in the summer learning camps that you're all are putting on?
We definitely are. We're taking care of our teachers that are just going above and beyond that extra mile, and supporting that year-long learning for our students that are there with them every day when they could be sunning themselves on a beach. So yes, we definitely offer incentives for our teacher that are participating and engaging in our summer programming.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, we are also, incentivizing our teachers. And, one of the things I think that I'm sure everybody on this call will say the same thing is it's about the resources that we help our teachers use, right? Making sure that we use quality resources and make sure that we're using resources that I like to call plug and play. So whether you are doing this virtually, or whether you're doing it a face-to-face model, that is plug and play and easy for the teacher, but also fun for the teacher. If it's not fun for the teacher, it's not going to be fun for the kids. So it's really important that those pieces are there, and also being able to provide the proper training for the teachers who implement this with the kids.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. So we have another question here. So you were just talking about virtual as well, and the plug and play idea. The summer camps that you're kind of putting together and that you may have run last year in the past, are you handling them virtually, conducting them virtually at all, or are you just doing them in person? Any thoughts on that?
We had them virtual last year. Last summer, they were totally virtual. But this summer, they will be hybrid. Students will have the option to come face-to-face or to remain virtual. So they'll be both. And of course, before COVID, they were face-to-face. So we've had a variety, and we are also definitely incentivizing teachers. Teachers deserve so much more than everyone says this all the time, than what they are paid. But we're definitely incentivizing them to teach summer. And we also bring in outside organizations that also provide some of our summer services as well.
Another one here that we have, I think it's a great question. In each of your districts, have there been improvements to access to hardware and Wi-Fi for students at home, especially thinking about now that we're transitioning, any students who were maybe in person at school, now heading back to home, have there been improvements to your hardware and Wi-Fi? Nakia?
Absolutely. For my district, we are almost a one-to-one for everyone. We also included hotspots for our students that didn't have Wi-Fi. So we've seen dramatic improvement to access to hardware and Wi-Fi. We gave, each student had a laptop where they checked out like they did with a traditional textbook. They picked it up from the school, their home-based school, and took it home if they were virtual. And then we had the students that was on campus, and they also still just brought their devices to school. So whether they were synchronous or asynchronous, they all had access to a laptop.
Yeah, same here. We have had some amazing community partners that have really stepped up and really facilitated moving from a somewhat digital campus to a one-to-one when we went completely virtual. Comcast, who's our internet and cable service provider here locally, has completely updated and they call it a Wi-Fi mesh, and really just stepped up their infrastructure to be able to extend what they currently were offering. We know that we've had partners with Dell and HP that have gone above and beyond to make sure that students had access to devices while they were at home. We had partners with our public access television networks where students that didn't have reliable access in our more rural communities, we actually played our core instruction over regular airwaves, so that students maybe only had rabbit ears, or if they had cable network, or if they had Dish, they could still access summer learning when we first transitioned, so that no matter what you had available, you could still continue that learning. So yeah, we've definitely made huge improvements in our district thanks to our community partners.
Fantastic. That does sound like you all have seen some major impacts there. We have another question here. It's a little bit longer, so bear with me. Time is valuable. We know that teaching virtually, professional learning being webinar style, we have created more time for our educators and more time for our students and decreased windshield time, if you will. How has the gift of time been actually utilized in your districts?
I can talk a little bit about that. I think some of that gift of time, and I think a lot of us probably on this call, I teach in a very large division or district. In Virginia, we're divisions. People call them districts, except Virginia, we call them divisions. I don't know why. But you know, where we have thousands and thousands of teachers, there's one of me, right? To go out there and provide professional development, the ability to access teachers and coaches and principals and district admin has been much easier. The rate of trying to get a meeting has exceeded, you know, and I think it's really saved us time, this idea. I mean, look what we're doing today. Yeah, we could have done this last year, but that we're capable of doing it. Not so far, I don't think anyone said, hey, you're on mute, which is probably the most common thing that people say all the time. Hey, you're on mute, right? We've come a long way in 1 year. So I think the idea of being able to do it virtually has really increased the players and really being able to, in my position, be able to access people that I normally wouldn't have not had any access to. So professional development is really kind of streamlined and it exploded exponentially.
No, thank you. I think you're spot on there. Another question. We've talked a lot about year-long learning and students, you know, really growing throughout the year, not just during the school year. Do you see this discussion lead to the direction of year-round school in your districts, or do you think that's still not something that's possible? Just random thoughts on that.
We have actually had some discussion around year-long schools. We have not landed on anything yet as far as moving in that direction. But I do think that having the summer options gives students exactly that, the option, where with year-long school, they don't have the option. So, but I know we have had discussions about, you know, would it benefit our students to move to a format that allows year-long school? And we have one school in our district that is a magnet school where they do have that type of calendar. So we've looked at their school and looked at their students, and we've surveyed to get some input and some feedback from community and from students and from teachers. So we've had the discussion, but haven't moved that way yet.
Fantastic. And we won't hold you to anything there, don't worry. Another question here is, how do you measure fun/student engagement? I would say start with the summer, and then, you know, even beyond that, you know, other than smiley face charts or anything like that. How are you measuring student engagement and fun in the classroom?
I mean, I think for me as both a parent and as an educator, you can see it in their face. Like when they are like really invested, the questions never stop. They'll find a way to research, to learn more. They'll, you know, go above and beyond to really just answer those questions that are burning inside of them, you know, be able to apply their learning in different ways. Like you can see that spark in their eyes, that smile when they light up, when they've come home, you know, when they've come back to school and they can be like, look at what I learned when I went home, or I talked to this person and here's what I learned. You know, can I share this with the class? Like you can see it.
I'll even extend on that. I think that is totally true. You definitely see it in them. And I think Dr. Jameson mentioned a little while ago too, if the teacher is not enjoying the learning, if the teacher's not having fun, you feel it as an educator that the way that lesson felt, the way the students interacted with you. And then something else that we do, of course, we survey our students to ask them, did you find this engaging? Did you find this fun? Did you find this to be something that you would want to do, again? We have an amazing summer coordinator who organizes the entire larger chunk of the summer. And I don't know how she manages all of that. It's just one of her hats that she wears very well. But the program that my team specifically works on, the Woke Project, one of the things that we did look at was, on day one, when you had this large group of students that came together to apply math to a social issue, and all of those students came back, and some of them told others to come back, and shared it with their friends and said, you might want to come and check this out. We knew we had something there. So I think those were some of the things that we look at as well.
I was going to say, that's spot on. I mean, as a parent myself, kids don't come home and say, look at this great worksheet I did in school today. They come home and they tell you about the games they're playing, or the project they're building, or the experience that they're having. And I think you're spot on. It's fairly easy to see it, if you will, versus just being able to measure it in a specific number sense, if you will. We did have one. Oh, Nikia, did you have something to add?
I was just gonna add that when students say, why can't it always be like this? That's when that's when they're engaged, right? They are very much having fun. They're enjoying doing the math or doing the lesson. So when you hear that, whether it's virtual or not, and as Dr. Clarke said, they're recruiting other people, then that's engagement that you want. That's the level of engagement that the students need and what they want. Absolutely.
Well, we have one last little question here, and I'm going to kind of reframe it, if you will, which is if any of our participants had additional questions or were interested in hearing more about what you're specifically doing in your districts, are you all okay with them reaching directly out to you? I'm assuming the answer is yes, but I definitely want to make sure I ask it before I start giving out email addresses. But no, as we continue to look to the summer and collaborate in solving these issues, we really encourage you to reach out to our panelists. They are truly experts in this area and have been working in this area for much longer than all of us combined. And we're also encouraging you to connect with us at Legends of Learning. We're here to help you engage your students. Engagement's such an important part of us, and we're really looking to the summer months as another way to help show you how video games and how game-based learning can truly lead to that student engagement. You can check us out at our free summer learning resource page at www.legendsoflearning.com. And you go underneath the Learn drop-down menu. You'll find free resources from project-based learning, examples to ways to build board games with your students. A lot of really cool resources there. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're obviously really thankful for not just our participants, but for our panelists as well. And I just want to say, have a great rest of the week, and we hope to hear from you and hear about what you're doing during the summer as well. Thank you all.